Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense, where me and John talk about professional wrestling and whether or not it makes sense, etc., etc. You guys know the drill by now. We've done like a billion episodes of this show, so you know what to expect. So recently, I had heard that there was supposed to be a big, like, long-term storyline that was going to play out in the WWE that was going to start at WrestleMania and work all the way through to the summer or something like that. And it got cancelled because of COVID-19, that dastardly virus that nobody seems to be able to put down. You know, it's the Brock Lesnar of viruses. Can't stop it. And then recently, Darren Young, he did an interview with somebody, and he said that he was supposed to be at WrestleMania because the Nexus were going to make some kind of appearance at WrestleMania. They were gonna reunite or something. He didn't go too far into the storyline, presumably because he didn't know a whole lot of the stuff. You know what that company's like when it comes to booking things. They're just like, well, turn up and we'll figure out what to do later, you know. So it seemed, all signs seem to point to the Nexus reunion at WrestleMania being the big storyline that the WWE had planned, because this is like the 10th anniversary of the Nexus turning up in the WWE. So there was a buzz about them anyway, and they were talking about them on their website and on other places and stuff like that. So they were clearly hinting very subtly, as the WWE do, masters of subtlety. They were very hinting at the fact that we could be getting some Nexus action this year, and then of course the virus happened and all that had to be scrapped. I find that very interesting. I don't know about you.
Well, I find it a bit hard to believe, to be honest. It sounds like the kind of story that someone makes up when they just want to be, quoted on the wrestling news.
Right, because we were trying to put this together right before we recorded, and we were like, I think there was 10 people in the Nexus, right?
Yeah, including like the sort of second generation where they drafted in like Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy and stuff.
Well,
I think it's around that.
Let's not even worry about those cats for now. Like, the main kind of Nexus crew was Wade Barrett, Daniel Bryan, Heath Slater,
Yeah.
Ryback.
Yeah, as Skip Sheffield.
Yeah, Darren Young.
Yep.
Michael Tarver. Justin Gabriel.
Yeah.
And Otunga.
That's correct.
Is that it? 8?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you know, it was a big group. I don't think we're missing anybody for the main core, but we were trying to figure out like the logistics of this. For example, Darren Young might have returned at WrestleMania to start the Nexus. That's fair enough. Heath Slater was recently released, but that was because of COVID-19. So rewind to before that happened. It's entirely possible that he could have been there. So that's Heath Slater and Darren Young in it, like, locked in. Okay, they're in the group. Daniel Bryan still works for that company. He's got his own shit going on right now. It's possible they could have put it back in the group.
Yeah.
Just as a surprise, as a, like, you know, whoa, swerve, didn't see this shit coming. So let's say that's 3 people. And you need Daniel Bryan or somebody like that in there, because no offense to Heath Slater or Darren Young, but, you know, those 2 guys as a group together aren't going to strike fear into the hearts of anybody. So you need somebody like Daniel Bryan there. Wade Barrett is busy. He is a commentator for the NWA, I think.
That's correct.
He's got his own shit going on. He is, from what I've heard, not interested in returning to the WWE at all. So he's out. Ryback, similar scenario. He's happy doing whatever the fuck he wants to do. Seems to have a lot of bad blood with that company. Yeah. So he wouldn't be interested at all. He's out.
Justin Gabriel wrestles for Ring of Honor.
Right. And he's contracted there, and he's very happy.
Yep.
With where he is. He doesn't seem like he would want to come back anytime soon. Otunga, is he still with that company?
I believe so, but he obviously hasn't wrestled for probably like 5 years now, and he's just mainly been used for like the pre-shows and round tables and stuff like that.
imagine you ran your own wrestling company and you had to fire somebody. You had to release them because of COVID-19, and you're looking at David Otunga, and then you're looking at Rusev, and you're like, God, I'm not sure which one to pick.
Yeah.
I think I'll go with Rusev, the man who's been on TV, the man who can wrestle, the man who can get himself over with the crowd. Fuck that guy. But Otunga, who can do none of those things, I'm keeping that boy. He's
Yeah.
my right hand man.
It's money well spent right there.
Right. So, okay, let's say Otunga does join the group.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to David Otunga, but he's like blander than the other two bland people we mentioned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying Heath Slater is bland, but I'm like, if you want to draw heat with that group, you need to have big players involved. And Daniel Bryan at the moment is the only big player we've been able to identify.
Well, you haven't mentioned Michael Tarver yet.
Well, okay, let's mention him now. Go ahead.
I couldn't tell you a single thing that Michael Tarver's done since he got released in 2011. So
No, I've got no fucking idea. Is it possible he would want to reunite with the group to make some more money?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so now we got 5 people.
But 5 jobbers. Well, 4
jobbers and Daniel Bryan. Okay, so that's it, right? We've eliminated the other people,
Mm-hmm.
and out of those people that we've eliminated, Wade Barrett is necessary for the group because he was a leader. That was like part of the storyline. Ryback you kind of need because he's the muscle of the group.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big imposing dude. All he has to do is stand there and not say anything, which works on lots of levels. So just don't give him a mic and he'd be grand. So you need those 2 guys are kind of key for the Nexus.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel Bryan, having only been in the Nexus for like a short amount of time before he kind of pivoted and came back as a good guy, and who fought against the Nexus, it doesn't really make sense for him to be in the group.
Yeah.
So let's take him out of the group again.
And then you're just left with 4 choppers.
Then you got Heath Slater, who now is de facto the leader because he's the most over, the most well-known, the most decorated member of this group. You've got Heath Slater, the leader. You've got Michael Tarver, David Otunga, and Darren Young. Does that sound like that's a really interesting storyline to be able to spring?
It's got money written all over it.
It's got something written all over it. I don't know if it's money. So like, just from like looking at it from that point of view, you're like, I don't see how that storyline would be good. Now the reason the original Nexus was really good was because, like that whole NXT thing, back when NXT used to be a competition.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a Tough Enough style competition before it became actually good NXT. And the first season of it had all these people trying to compete to be the next WWE superstar, which is why it was called NXT.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be the next superstar, but we're going to spell next like a really cool guy. And we're going to take the E out, and then it just says NXT. But you know it means next, And so these guys would have competitions, and then every week they had like tutors as well, or like what's the word? Mentors.
Yeah,
They had like mentors who were like other superstars, who just could not give a fuck about any of that stuff because who cares? If you're fucking whoever, John Cena. I don't think John Cena did it, but like some of those guys, like you've got all this shit. Dolph Ziggler, like he's like, I've got other things going on. I don't want to have to fucking go on NXT as well. Busy guy. So that wasn't really factored into it. It just ended up being these rookies trying to compete for a place to be number one. And every week, all these people would get eliminated. There was only one guy left, who I believe was Wade Barrett.
Yes,
I believe Wade Barrett was the winner. And so, like, was it like a week after, or was it the day of, or something? They had these like NXT finals, and Wade Barrett was the winner. And then nobody gave a shit because why would they? But then, like, relatively shortly after the whole NXT experiment, just at the end of was it the end of Raw?
Yeah, it was a match between John Cena and CM Punk,
which
which like the
everybody wants to watch.
yeah.
Fuck, listen, man, what I would give for a John Cena versus CM Punk match right now. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So people want to watch this match, and suddenly all of the guys who were eliminated from NXT and the winner of NXT, Wade Barrett, just start like fucking wrecking the place.
Yeah.
They come out and they fuck up John Cena and CM Punk, and they just start like ripping up ringside and attacking the announcers and stuff, like destroying the tables and just like really making a mess, really like taking over the show.
Mm-hmm.
To prove that like they were all kind of united and they were all disappointed that they had to work as a competition to work against each other, when really strength is in numbers, and if they work together they can actually be all eight of them can be the force that's necessary, the young force, to revitalize WWE, fight against the old guard and install a new generation of superstars. That was kind of the mindset behind it,
Definitely.
which was fucking cool. God, that was cool, because I remember watching it and going, shit, I am very interested in this.
Yeah.
Where did all this shit come from? You know what I mean? Like, it was really well done.
Yeah, it was unlike anything else we'd seen for like a good couple of years by that point, because we were so deep into the like PG era that the product had been sort of sanitized and lost its edge a little bit. So seeing all these guys come in and like kick ass and just smash the place up, it was like almost like a throwback to the good old days.
Right. It was very inventive, and it was like one of those things that people didn't see coming. It was a real surprise to people, and the fact that they did such a good job with it. The Nexus did such a good job of like, getting heat and getting people to hate them. It was incredible to watch, to witness, to be a part of,
Mm.
And it used to be like the WWE would do this kind of thing like once a year, kind of like what Marvel do with their big like crossovers and shit.
Mm.
Is that they kind of like, middle of the road it for most of the way, and then like once a year or so they'll hit you with something so good you're like, that's why I like this company, because this was 2010, so like the year after that they did the pipe bomb thing with CM Punk and John Cena.
Yeah.
Like they always did something where you go, that's why I like it, there's always something in there. So this Nexus thing happened, and I was like, this is cool, man. This is really cool, because I, like many other people, were pretty like underwhelmed by the whole NXT thing. It wasn't that interesting, like watching them running around the ring or doing all these silly little tasks and stuff like a fucking reality show.
Yeah.
I think that's why it was so good, because the WWE, have proven that they do love that kind of crap. They love the reality shows and their silly, goofy antics and their nonsense, right? And so we're sitting watching it going, this is more of their fucking bullshit that they love pulling. Which it was, but that led, enough weight to the storyline so that when they flipped the script on you, you go, whoa, that was really well done. It's like they had their cake and they ate it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a really weird phrase, to have your cake and eat it too. Because like, why, if you have cake, why wouldn't you eat it? You know what I mean? What a redundant phrase that is. But anyway, it's a wrestling podcast. The linguistic podcast will be on after this. The fuck is it talking about? This is talking about cake. Anyway, it was a good storyline, is my point. But like, it felt really like big and heavy, and like it could be it felt a little bit like how it must have felt when the NWO happened the first time.
Yeah, that's the comparison I'd make to it.
Yeah.
It's like that gang mentality, like the outsiders coming in and fucking shit up basically, and not taking any prisoners, and that's exactly what Nexus did. Like the way that they would, indiscriminately go after Cena and CM Punk and the straight edge society showed that didn't matter if you were face or heel or announcer or ring announcer or whatever, like no one was safe, and that added this element of danger, which I think was like even made even better when like Daniel Bryan got released as well, because it showed like, wow, they really did go that far. That they had to like release Daniel Bryan because he was choking Justin Roberts with his tie, and I think he spat on John Cena as well, which they really didn't like.
Oh, that's fucking. He's a beautiful man.
Yeah, but it all worked out for the best, like with that Daniel Bryan thing, because it meant that when eventually he did come back, it made him a bigger deal than just being, like a random member of the Nexus. So it worked out best for him in the long run, but yeah, it still made for a interesting start to the group when, like, 1 week in, they've got to explain why one of the group is gone already. And apparently the reason they gave was that Daniel Bryan felt remorse for his actions, and so that's why they kicked him out of the group.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, fair enough. He felt remorse. He was the only one fucking choking a guy out. And all those other fucking dudes standing around, they didn't have the balls to do it. And yet he shows remorse for that, and they kick him out. It's okay, fair enough. But again, like, that adds a part to the story. So now you have like the de facto good guy going against the de facto bad guys. Like you said, when the Nexus came in, they made no kind of differentiating between heel and face. Everybody was anybody in the WWE was a target.
Yeah.
So they were going to fight them, quite like the NWO. And what the NWO did was they were able to, amass numbers and use their strength in numbers and their heelish tactics to like be able to get one over on the WCW, win their belt, and kind of hold on to the belt because it was strength in numbers and because of heelish shenanigans and stuff like this. They also had their obvious counterpart in Sting. Like, he was the guy that was going to defeat the NWO.
Yeah.
And you could see it. And they to be fair, they did do a very good job of making that dynamic work. Sting versus NWO. Like, obviously it was everybody versus NWO, but it was clear that Sting was going to be the guy. Right? You have Sting, who's one guy against all of the NWO. Obviously, he's going to get a great rub from being able to beat this stable that's been taking over the company for like a year and a half. That's going to make him look great. If you look at the Nexus, they had strength in numbers, good start. They had this invasion angle, good start. They have an obvious counterpart in Daniel Bryan. The obvious counterpart being that he was part of the Nexus and left because he felt remorseful for his actions, and now he wants to get revenge on the bad guys. And then if he is able to take down all of the Nexus when the rest of the WWE couldn't, there you go. You got yourself a brand new star in Daniel Bryan. Right?
I mean, that would have been one option they could have done for sure. But
in theory, if you had a storyline like that where Bing, number one, Nexus get the belts, heavyweight championship, some of the other belts as well, because of shenanigans, heelish tactics, strength in numbers, and then B, you have Daniel Bryan be the one that ultimately puts a stop to them and takes them down after nobody else could. Those would have been really good options to take that storyline in, wouldn't it?
But that's definitely not what they did, though. So
no, that is not what they did at all. So when do you know what date it was when the Nexus happened? Roughly, like, do you know what month it was?
7th of June 2010.
Okay, June, right? Yeah. So we are literally in 10th anniversary of Nexus territory right now.
Yes.
So obviously, again, let's put our Booker hats back on for a second. Obviously, if you want to legitimize this group, you kind of have to, take a page out of the NWO's book and think, we're going to have to get these guys like a lot of TV time. They need to be prominently on TV. They need to be beating the big guys, the big stars, for the moment because we can't let the wheels fall off this. For like, you could stretch that past WrestleMania probably. But let's say it does run to WrestleMania, right? That's still 9 months you can fucking or ish. I don't know, Maz, but it's probably like 9 months where you can build up the Nexus as these crazy heels, so that whoever beats them at WrestleMania 9 months away is gonna look crazy good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we can take our booking hats off again. We can put our historical hats on. We have lots of hats,
Yeah.
and we can go and look at what happened. Thanks to the WWE Network, we can actually see what happened. So they started in June,
Yes.
and they were pretty hot for a while, let's say.
I'd say at least a couple of months or so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were pretty much taking out everyone. Like, Cena was the main target, but they even took out Bret Hart, who was the GM at the time. They took out Vince McMahon, Ricky Steamboat, even The Undertaker at one point as well.
Right, and you know that you're not supposed to mess with the Undertaker.
Exactly.
So, because a lot of people watching that, they're like, yeah, all right, you can beat up Ricky Steamboat, but don't beat up the Undertaker. You know, to be fair, Ricky Steamboat wasn't really like, you know, he wasn't a full-time guy.
No.
Let's say in 2010. So, okay, they're pretty hot. They're all together. They're a group. We have the guy Daniel Bryan who's opposing them.
Mm-hmm.
They're attacking people randomly. Boy, you know what? I reckon we could get a pretty sweet match out of these guys at something like SummerSlam. I mean, they started in June. SummerSlam's in August. 2 months to build up to a big show after that. And imagine how the crowd's gonna flip whenever the Nexus like beat the fuck out of everybody at SummerSlam. Oh, the heat they're gonna get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't that be amazing? And that heat, that'll ride them all the way to Survivor Series when they do it again. That'll roll you to Royal Rumble when they just fucking dominate. Oh, it'll lead you all the way to WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah.
So SummerSlam happens. SummerSlam 2010.
Yep.
Nexus have been hot for 2 months. By the way, I don't know. We didn't plan this, so I don't know if you have time to research it. But like, the NWO started in June, right? Bash at the Beach.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. How quickly after that did Hulk Hogan win the title? It's got to be what, somewhere 3 to 5 months after that.
I want to say even quicker than that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but like, was it August or like September? Because it wasn't like it didn't take too long for them to establish dominance and to figure out that Hulk Hogan was going to be the guy and his lackeys were going to help him win and keep helping him win and keep having him with the belt. So once you've established that dynamic, it means that you either have to, no, you pretty much have to like put Hogan into that position because that's where they've been angling to, and to give that group legitimacy, you got to have them win the belts. And you know, same with Hall and Nash, they won the tag belts pretty shortly after that too.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't do it the day of, but you leave it a month or two till they've established their dominance, and then bam, you know, something big happens.
Right. So it was Road Wild by the sounds of it.
Okay.
Road Wild 96, which was August. So yeah, it was like 2 months later.
Okay. Well, this is perfect. NWO started in June. By August, Hogan won the belt. Law and order was established. Well, not law and order, but you know what I mean. Yeah. NWA Law and order was established. Cut to 2010. Nexus started in June. 2 months later, it's SummerSlam. Are any of them booked in a championship match?
No, definitely not.
Okay, well, maybe they're saving it for a little bit later. That's okay. Doesn't matter. So long as, I mean, they are booked for the show, right?
Yeah. They're booked for a big 7 versus 7 elimination match.
Well, then if they're booked for the show, at least they could put on a really good showing against these other 7 guys, right?
Of course.
7 hand-picked WWE guys. If they can put these guys, is it an elimination match?
It is.
Well, then you know what? The Nexus could win this in really dominating fashion. They could cheat to win all they want, but if they can win with like a pretty good majority on their side, you know, then they're gonna look sweet, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Did they eliminate a lot of people? Was it
Uh,
one-sided? Was it one-sided?
no, it definitely wasn't one-sided. It
Oh,
was.
but they won though, right? Like, I mean, it might not have been totally one-sided. It probably came down to like one or two guys versus John Cena, but like they if they got John Cena, right? Like they won the match, yeah?
Well, it's a funny story because apparently that was the original plan, was
Uh-huh.
for them to win the match and
Yeah.
for Wade Barrett to pin John Cena and score the big win. But
Yeah, Bill dominant, really show that the Nexus are a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you can't shut them down 2 months after they started, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
But according to Edge and Chris Jericho from a podcast they did, that Cena apparently asked for the for the result to be changed. So rather than the Nexus go over, he got the big happy victory over everyone else, and he was the last man standing. And all of a sudden, the Nexus kind of looked like chumps.
Well, I mean, that's one way to go about it.
It certainly is. Not the right way, but it's
Oh,
one
it's
way.
certainly not a good way by any means, but well, there it is.
And the
Isn't that fucking bizarre?
Yeah, and the fact is they knew that they'd screwed up as well because they ended up doing the elimination match again like a few weeks later, but they replaced it was the same teams except Randy Orton replaced Bret Hart in the original from the original match, but the on the second go around they actually did have the Nexus win, and Wade Barrett was the last man standing. But by then it was like it's too little, too late, and you could tell that they were just trying to fix a mistake which they shouldn't have made in the first place. And winning a random elimination tag team match on Raw doesn't really have the same oomph as winning it in the main event of SummerSlam. So yeah.
Not a good move at all. And it's
No.
a damn shame because like they came in so hot.
Yeah.
Like it was perfect. You could see it all happening. You could see it all playing out. You're like, there's no possible way for you guys to screw this up. And then every time we say that, they find a way to screw it up.
I
You know what I
mean,
mean? I mean,
yeah.
this has happened plenty of time where we're like, this is an easy storyline. A fucking child could write this. And then, boop, nope. Which ruins momentum. Like it totally ruined the momentum of the Nexus. Because then they did look like a bunch of chumps. Like who cares?
Mm.
It doesn't have the same impact. Didn't they do a fight at Survivor Series?
At Survivor Series, I think they might have done. Oh, I get the feeling that might have been where Wade Barrett was sort of moved into the title picture at last. So because they'd kind of at that point as well, they'd set it up so John Cena was he'd lost a match to Wade Barrett, and that meant that he had to become a member of the Nexus. And then Wade Barrett was going for the title, and I believe John Cena was supposed to be the special guest referee for the title match at Survivor Series against Randy Orton. And basically, if Barrett didn't win the title, Cena would get fired from his job. But if Barrett did win the title, then Cena could get his freedom from the Nexus. And what ended up happening was, Cena ended up counting the fall against Barrett. I think he pushed him into a RKO, and so he was fired. And then this was where it really started going downhill for the Nexus because for the next few weeks, Cena was basically he was fired from WWE, but he kept showing up in the crowd and stuff and like attacking Nexus members until the group sort of demanded that Wade Barrett reinstated him or he'd get exiled from the Nexus. And so Wade Barrett had no choice but to agree to rehire Cena to WWE contract, because I guess he had the power to do that. But
That's a good point. What the fuck?
yeah, it didn't make a ton of sense. But the reason for doing it was so he could get a match with Cena at TLC in December.
Oh, the
But
classic pay-per-view TLC,
Yeah.
as high profile as Survivor Series or SummerSlam.
Oh, they had like a chairs match as well, that old classic.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I think that was the one that ended where Cena, there was like all those chairs sort of hanging from the stage setup, and he ended up somehow dropping them all on top of Wade Barrett to win the match. And
Jesus Christ.
yeah, by that point, Nexus was dead in the water, really.
So that was December, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. For comparison's sake, I believe the NWO by December were fucking hitting their stride. They were all over the place. They already had a ton of new members. They were really established themselves as the absolute fucking stable in not only the WCW but professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Like they were the fucking dudes. By December. By December 2010, the Nexus were pretty much done.
Mm-hmm.
Because not just because of that SummerSlam move, but also because like all the heat was off them and they just dropped the ball repeatedly with them. Like, didn't they do this weird angle where whenever John Cena was in the Nexus, he had to win the tag titles with like Heath Slater or something?
I believe it was David Otunga, but yeah.
Oh, your favorite wrestler, David Otunga. But then like, right after that, didn't they do a switch to move the belts to somebody else in the Nexus?
Yeah, I think that was to Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel.
Right. But like, why? Like, couldn't they just freebird it and just say John Cena's not the champion?
Well, I think the idea behind it was to kind of mess with Cena. So, yeah, Cena won the titles, but then they kind of forced him to lie down and embarrass himself by being pinned by Heath Slater or Justin Gabriel or whoever it was to lose the titles. So it's more like a power play sort of thing.
And then one other thing, whenever you were talking about how John Cena, like, cost Wade Barrett the chance to be champion, and so was fired, and then started coming back and muscling in on the Nexus to make Wade Barrett rehire him somehow.
Yeah.
That's one guy against this entire stable.
Mm-hmm.
And he's making them look like chumps just to get his job back.
Yeah.
Like, not for any championships on the line or anything like this. Like, by himself, John Cena is making the entire Nexus look like idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense if this was the end of the feud. But at the beginning, before they've even had a chance to get going, John Cena's out there making them look like dicks. And also, like we all have already said and established, shouldn't that be Daniel Bryan doing that? Because wouldn't that have made more sense for Daniel Bryan to show all of this heart and determination that we hadn't seen out of him before, to fight against the Nexus and to really prove that he would rather be in the WWE? Doesn't that make more sense? Isn't that a better storyline than just John Cena again?
Yeah, but I guess looking at it from WWE's point of view, they've never really been fully invested in Daniel Bryan. Like, even if you go back to his NXT days when I think he was the only guy in the entire of season 1 to like not pick up a single victory. He was booked to lose like every single match. And then obviously he got fired and he was gone for 3 months before coming back or 2 months before coming back at SummerSlam. And then he pretty much had no interactions with Nexus from then on. He moved straight into a feud with Miz and the US title and stuff.
It's always the Miz.
Yeah, goddamn
Miz. So again, like a lot of the stuff we pointed out like 20 minutes ago that would have been really good and that would have made sense, it would have been like captivating, new, interesting storyline. None of it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fucking whiff of it happened. And again, I'm not saying that you and me are the greatest bookers of all time, even though, it's been well established by now with our 46-year history as podcast veterans that book wrestling matches, that we are clearly the best bookers of all time.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous that the WWE didn't listen to us 10 years ago when we were fantasy booking this in our head. It is weird, man, how they really did drop the ball.
Yeah, but I think it's important to say as well there are some like extenuating circumstances as well, like the whole injuries that people picked up, like Skip Sheffield really badly injured his ankle and he was out of action for like over a year because of that. Michael Tarver like injured his groin, and Darren Young was kicked out of the group as well at one point. So like the lack of continuity there maybe hurt them a bit, and certainly like in terms of credibility as well, it's all well and good them being booked to like attack all these big names and legends and stuff and take them all out, but if they didn't win any titles, which they didn't, then it's like you say, that's like sort of wrestling's bread and butter. Like the champions are the ones who stick out the most, and you look at a group like Evolution when they came in, and the four of them won all the titles and on Raw and were booked so strongly that made them a big deal and kept them a big deal, whereas the Nexus never really got that, and I think that hurt them more than anything.
Well, the bad booking hurt them a lot, because this isn't really the end of the Nexus storyline, is it?
No.
Because the Nexus didn't... What happened first? Was it the new Nexus or was it the core? Which one happened?
I believe it was sort of at the same time, really. Like Wade Barrett, after he came back from that TLC match, because he took a few weeks off afterwards because of all these chairs dropping on him. He came back to find that CM Punk had taken over the Nexus, and he basically kicked Barrett out of the group, who then went over to SmackDown to form the core with Ezekiel, Jackson, Justin Gabriel, and Heath Slater, because Gabriel and Slater pretty much refused to stay with the Nexus because CM Punk wanted them to do like this initiation type thing where the rest of the group would get to hit them with kendo sticks, and they were like, nah, we're not having that. So that split the group up, and so the core went off and did bugger all on SmackDown, whereas the Nexus stuck around to kind of support CM Punk in a title feud with Randy Orton. And then the Summer of Punk happened, and Nexus pretty much were gone by early August, I think.
So that's like a year.
Yeah, just over a year it lasted.
Just over a year that the Nexus was, and that's including like the new Nexus and the core and all of that other bullshit. Let's say that went for just over a year. Now, to go back to our NWO comparison, they went till 98, I think, or early 99.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but they did split off into different...
Well, they split into the Wolfpack and the Black and White. And then once they did the Finger Poke of Doom, that was the swerve that brought the Black and White and the Wolfpack back together. So that was in 98, the Finger Poke of Doom, right?
Yeah.
So that went on for a little bit longer, and then they split in like 1999, and then there was the new NWO 2000. I'm sorry. Wouldn't want to give it its incorrect name.
Yeah.
NWO 2000, which happened in 2000, I would imagine. So like that was like a offshoot, but it didn't really have anything to do with the NWO to begin with. A little bit like the new Nexus, I'm like, it's kind of, but not really,
Yeah.
But like, so that was in 2000. So that's from 1996 to, it wasn't, and then the NWO came back again in fucking 2002. If you want to be very technical about it. So they were able to like ride that out for a while. Like that the storyline really kind of properly ended after the NWO 2000 split up, and then they were like, no more NWO ever. Yeah. That was pretty much it, right? So let's say 4 years ish. Whereas here we have it done, over and done with, and pretty much like 100% this is done in a year and a half, a year and a couple of months, you know?
Oh yeah, they'd done so much damage to the Nexus name that there was no going back to it really.
Yeah, like it was done, and like that's admirable in a way. That they could fuck it up that badly, that quickly, and then wait 10 years before they even fucking thought about it again. You know what I mean? Because like I said, the NWO, yep, that got criticized and that got fucking split up and that got ridiculous and they did bury it and they ruined it. But, you know, a couple of years later, here come the NWO again in 2002. So like it happened again because it was, you know, for all its flaws, it was still popular and memorable. And the problem with the Nexus was that their first outing was very memorable, which was the point. People wanted to see more of this stuff, and they just didn't deliver.
Yeah.
They just, after that initial fucking takeover, there was no. It seemed like there was just no intention of them taking over at all, which was a shame given how dominant. Like they went so far with the original takeover as to make everybody think, wow, now this is something big and this is something cool to watch. And then right after that, they made their intentions clear that no, nothing was going to change. And it gave people hope, you know, and they very clearly like drew the lines and said, okay, you can hope, but it's, you know, this is just our big blockbuster crossover for the year. And then next year it'll be business as usual till we think of a new thing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So, like, given all of that shit and put that all together, and you think about the impact that a Nexus storyline in 2020 would have, like a reunion story with the fucking 4 people we covered at the beginning of the show, it's like it would never have been a good idea. I don't think that would have worked. And like, what the fuck? Like, if they'd have turned up, if those 4 guys, I mean, hell, right? Let's even give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's put Daniel Bryan in there too, just to help their cause out. Even if Daniel Bryan's in there, and then at WrestleMania they did what they did 10 years ago, they ripped the shit out of everything. Daniel Bryan's choking Justin Roberts with his tie again, and you're like, Justin Roberts doesn't even work for this company anymore. I don't think. How did this happen? But it happened again. I'm mysterious. They do all this shit, right, at WrestleMania again. But nobody's going to care because they already did it.
Yeah.
10 years ago. You can't replicate that part, and that was the only bit that was interesting because they bungled the rest of it.
Yep.
So having the Nexus come back in 2020 wouldn't have been an interesting storyline.
No,
in my
definitely
opinion.
not.
You know,
No.
Because they just did such a fucking ass-ended like way of. They didn't make that faction seem very memorable. Therefore, why would you want to remember them? Whereas flip side, you talk about how often they bring back DX or the NWO. You know, for all their faults, they were still memorable and focused properly and utilized correctly. So, and it is fun sometimes seeing the DX or NWO, even though it's kind of like, you know, you like these guys again, you know, like at the takeover, the very recent NXT takeover, there was a little advert with Todd Pettingill where he was chilling and the t-shirts, and they cut to like Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Road Dogg like trying to go on AOL online. And I'm like, it's so stupid because they all looked really old.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they all looked really old. But at the same time, you're like, oh, it's the boys back together. They're just clowning around. They're being silly, you know? And I felt like that was nice. And that's the role that DX are in now. They can comfortably fill that space. That silly, juvenile, you know, they don't have to do anything except just goof around. And that works for them. But they don't have an angle like that for the Nexus because the Nexus was never supposed to be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I get the same vibe from, like, you mentioned earlier, the Straight Edge Society. I fucking loved that group. But, like, they did nothing with them. And it became clear very quickly that it was never going to be a big group or lead to a long-term storyline or lead to anything interesting other than just a way to give Punk TV time without him actually, like, doing anything substantial.
Yeah.
which, you know, is great for Punk, but you're also like, you guys could have done so much with these people, and you didn't. It's like the drop in the ball. Maybe that's just the way creative was back in 2010, where they just couldn't give a fuck about stables, which makes you wonder why they introduced them to begin with, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think, yeah. So I don't think Nexus would have worked in 2020, but you know, we got the coronavirus, so. That's,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
If we can figure out a way to get a bunch of superstars to rally against the coronavirus and then pin it in the main event of next year's WrestleMania. In fact, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it at SummerSlam.
What we need is just to send John Cena after the coronavirus, and he'll drop a bunch of chairs on them.
I love the idea of just dropping a bunch of chairs at somebody. Like like a fucking Scooby-Doo cartoon or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine, he's trapped under the chairs. Like, why are all the chairs like connected to each other in order for them to all like fall down at once in a like why do you have so many chairs over there? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sound like a traditionalist, but most of my chairs are on the floor where chairs can be utilized correctly.
You've been doing it wrong for years, man.
Right, I gotta hang them up like a fucking idiot and just try to sit on them.
Yeah.
Could I just say, now that we're talking about chairs, the one thing I didn't like about the Adam Cole Velveteen Dream fucking parking lot tussle, I think the only thing I really didn't like was that after all the chairs were in the ring, Velveteen Dream goes up to do his finishing move, the elbow drop.
Yeah.
And Adam Cole like sets up a chair and then sits on it.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Like, what the fuck, man? Why did you do that, man? That was so stupid. Like, why couldn't Dream have why couldn't the chair have been set up and then Dream puts Adam Cole onto the chair and he's too tired to, like, you know, fall off it or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of Adam Cole having to put the chair up himself and then sit on it while he's looking like at the Velveteen Dream while he's sitting in the chair, and I'm like, come on, man, you're better than that. That's so fucking obvious. But other than that, I found it a great show. Anyway, this podcast wasn't about that. It's about NXT. Is there anything else you want to say about the Nexus and this whole debacle?
I mean, yeah. I mean, just to go off your point about, like, it wouldn't have worked in 2020. Like, you can look at what happened to all these guys after Nexus as well. So, like, none of them really, aside from Daniel Bryan, went on to have any, like, sustained success. Like, Wade Barrett was IC champion a few times and won King of the Ring, but they never really got behind him. Like, even when he became Bad News Barrett, like, they ended up taking that gimmick away from him because they were afraid he was getting too popular with it. And you know, you look at Heath Slater, he's probably like the second most successful guy because he was on TV for like 10 years and involved in a bunch of different groups and managed to get over, like, no matter how little TV time he was given. But other guys like, you know, Otunga and Gabriel and Darren Young, they just never got a proper push or anything after Nexus, and it's hard to get that stink off, I think. Like, yeah, they came in and looked great. They looked like killers in their first appearance when they, you know, attacked and formed the Nexus, but like after that, they just essentially became jobbers, really, and having a bunch of jobbers come back and attack, you know, whoever they were going to attack this time around just wouldn't have worked.
Right, like when the Nexus happened to begin with, nobody knew who these people were.
Yeah.
But if you do it 10 years later, we've seen what they're like 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't have the credibility of 10 years worth of being in the wrestling business, it's going to be really hard to believe that these guys are taking over the company again, given that they didn't do a very good job of taking over the company the first time.
Exactly.
It would have been a mess, you know. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing we didn't get it. Instead, we got some other fucking bullshit. I don't even know what we got. I mean, the wrestling hasn't been that bad this year.
No,
The WWE hasn't been that bad.
we all know what you think of AEW.
There's been some questionable stuff in the WWE that both of us have not agreed with.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the fucking TLC match. No, Money in the Bank match.
Yeah.
Goldberg.
Oh, definitely Goldberg.
You know, there's been definitely Goldberg. Yeah, 100% Goldberg. There's been some stuff that we haven't enjoyed, but like there's been some good stuff. Drew McIntyre has been doing a very good job. You know,
Yeah.
the Fiend for the most part I've been enjoying. NXT's been quality. You know, there's been some good stuff there. Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, good
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
You know, so like we don't need the Nexus.
No, definitely not.
Just what a bizarre idea. I'm like, just give us the good stuff. Instead of doubling down on the shit we don't want, give us the stuff we do want. Give us the good stuff, you know?
Yeah. Especially now when, there's no excuse not to be doing it with, these COVID shows where there's no crowd and they've got like a limited roster. It's like, well, just put all the good guys in the ring, the good wrestlers we want to see, and let them do their thing.
Right. The shit'll write itself, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the Nexus, I guess. We covered it pretty comprehensively, I think.
Yeah.
Let us know if you guys thought the Nexus was a good idea or a bad idea. Also, let us know if you think that like the Nexus 2020 would have been a good idea. We've made it pretty clear that we do not believe that it would have been a good idea. But we'd love to hear from you guys out there, all the people that are listening to this show. So yeah, dude, let us know what we think about the Nexus. And you know what? We call that a show?
Let's call that a show.
Let's call it a show. We will be back soon with another episode of your favorite wrestling podcast. Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. So have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.